Okay. Hey y'all, welcome. We're gonna talk about life being real. We're streaming this into the Radiant Evolution Collective, our free Facebook group, but you might be watching it on YouTube. And if you're doing that, I would take a moment to like and subscribe if you haven't already, because every week I get to have amazing conversations with my dear soul sisters and friends. I'm Aurora Light. I'm a conscious creation and voice activation coach and soul embodiment guide. And I'm here with Radiant Soul Nicole, who is also a soul embodiment guide and my inspiration coordinator and integrator and dear friend. And we're just missing Nina Infinity today, who is being an amazing example of taking care of herself right now and making a choice to do what is exactly right in this moment, because life is real and things are happening. There are internal and external pressures on people right now, and there's a lot of energy going on. And for some of us, it feels really easy to like float with it at times. And we're like, yes, going through life. I know how to do this. I'm winning. And then it'll be like smoosh, and you feel like you're drowning, right? And if you feel like you're drowning all of the time, that's legit. There's a lot going on. But there's a metaphor that we're going to talk about today that will support the floating and the being able to be in flow. And it has to do with surrender, but really when I talk about the difference between being in resistance to what is versus being in acceptance of reality, even if it's awful, even if it's heavy, even if it sucks, and what that means for your ability to actually create and change. So Nicole, do you have everything kind of shared out where it needs to be, all your posts and stuff?
Yes, we're all
Okay.
all set up. I
Cool.
notified our playground people to come watch us here.
Yeah, amazing. So, I mean, have you been feeling this energy lately about how there's some pressure and there are situations that are taking maybe more resources than we've required to manage them in the past, and that even if you're doing okay, sometimes there's a lot of support that's needed for friends and family at this time too, who might be feeling like they're being pulled under by circumstances that are just, unavoidable, out of their control, global, personal, like it's all happening right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm feeling better actually talking about this now that we're just doing this in the groups and not live on Facebook to everybody. But I just spent the weekend in Calgary, in another city, visiting my mom and helping her navigate some pretty intense health stuff. And uh, I it's been really interesting to have gone through my own pretty intense health stuff and be on the other side of that now, so I can hold in the field like, yes, this can get better, and yes, you can learn how to, once we can accept where you're at, it can, you know at least take off that layer of resistance to what is, because that just, you're already going through so much. You don't need to add all that extra resistance on your plate. But also, if you've gone through like a big health thing and it um, changes your identity, who you are, what you're able to do, all of that kind of stuff, you can't just like bypass all of that either. It's it's a really challenging thing to learn to accept that this is what your life is like currently, and you can't do all the things that you used to be able to do for yourself, and also still simultaneously holding out that hope that things can change and get better. But if you're having that layer of resistance on top of that, where you're not accepting that this is what your life is like now, you're not even able to get to that place where you can start choosing something different in your field, in your reality. And yeah, it's life can be pretty intense.
Yeah. I mean, that's the energy that I was really feeling into with the collective over the last couple days, is that there's some people, friends, family, clients who are at a place of not, it's not what they want. And so there's really strong resistance to it. They're like fighting the energies. They're like, no, this is not it. This is not what I want to be experiencing right now. And that fight energy is actually messing everything up. And it just is so natural though, because you're like, I don't want this. So like you're trying to push away, trying to be like, let's not have this. And it's so ironic. Every one of these spiritual paradoxes are so ironic. But the second we stop fighting and actually accept reality as it is, and we're not in resistance to it, no matter how much it sucks, and we're like, we get to the space of it is what it is, even though it might be horrible, awful, horrific. It's not what we want. It's not where we want to go. It doesn't feel good. As soon as there is that acceptance, there's a nervous system supporting energy that like relaxes us because we're not fighting it. It's that surrender. And sometimes it's a really hard one. And sometimes it only happens and people can only surrender when they're like out of energy completely. Right. And then they're just like, oh, fine, like whatever. I just can't fight anymore. And then it's like, whoa, there's a spaciousness there. There's this like peace. There is this openness. And then from that place, we get to the possibility of, it is what it is. And from here, I can make moves to shift and change. So when we're in the fight and flight, there's this inability to access creativity, logic, reason, your intelligence, your rational mind, your rational thinking. When you are like, put your dukes up, reality, I'm gonna fight you because I don't want you here, blah. Like we can't tap into our highest selves, our cosmic trajectory, the galactic visionary aspects of ourselves, the eagle's visionary ability to see everything for what it truly is. And I know for myself, as soon as I stop fighting something, then all of a sudden I'll have these like ideas drop in, like, oh, all I need to do for it to change is this, this, and this. And then I'm like, oh, that was easy. Why was this so hard for so long? And it's because when we're in that resistance energy, the ideas can't drop in, right? The help can't drop in. When you're in resistance, when you're fighting it, you're like, no, I don't want this. Screw you, life. This is not what I signed up for. You've got your shields up, right? And I think we wound up talking last week about expanding your creation container. Is that last week? And it's exactly that. When you're in the, I'm going to fight you on all of this energy because I don't want it in my field. I don't want it. Nothing can drop inside your space. In order to open the creation container, there has to be an element of surrender, right? Of availability, of openness, that relaxation and peace. And is it ever a difficult place to get to at times? And yet it's kind of the secret key to being able to move forward.
Yes. One of my favorite phrases is what we resist persists. And it's so freaking true. If you're in resistance, you're just not going to be able to, yeah, see anything. Like, so this weekend talking to my mom, bless her soul, she is not, she just hasn't ever been interested in any of this personal development, self-help stuff that I've done. And talking with her, she is like, I can tell that she's just running like so much trauma and so many belief systems slash programs. And I really felt like it was my purpose to be there, to just actually, I got the message like, how much can I know that I can't force things. I'm like, no, I got the message. I'm just here to plant the seeds this weekend. I'm just here to plant the seeds that there's being open to possibility, and that there is, everything is figure outable, and that it doesn't have to be like this forever. But when I could just feel like into her field, it feels shrunk, and her energy field feels shrunk, and she's just really in that like if you have seen the movie Soul, she doesn't totally feel like this, but it kind of feels like this a little bit, where they're in the like kind of astral realms, and all the lost souls are like just walking through the deserty area, and they're all all this energy, this black cloud is kind of circling around them, and they're literally like consumed by what's present in for them. But that's really all those loops and those thoughts of like, I'm not enough and I'm not better, and whatever all those thoughts are for people. It's as though I was there to help kind of like bust those a little bit and make some space so you could see that there could be possibility and different different options, and that she is supported and taken care of, and that we can, my sister and I can help her. Yeah, but I think at the early, speaking of and like a health thing, and I think back to when I first had the concussion happen, and where she is right now, it's almost like this like holding on, like I don't want to lose this old part of myself, and I want things to be the same still, and you can't accept that, because if you accept it, it almost feels like you're accepting that it's never going to be the same again, which is true. And that's not a bad thing, but it's fucking scary, because I think back to the concussion, and like at first I'm like, okay, I'll be better in a couple of days. And then it was like, oh, maybe I'll be better in a couple of weeks, and like I got to be better soon. And then I learned that if you're not better within 6 weeks, then it's like research shows that it's going to be turned into post-concussion syndrome and could take years, which it did. So it was really hard for me to accept at first that I was not going to be able to be functional in the same way that I was prior to hitting my head. And it's just crazy sometimes how like a simple thing like hitting your head can change the course of your life forever. And I had to, I at first I struggled with a lot of resistance of not accepting where I was, because I didn't know how long it was going to take to heal. And I think that if I had broken a bone and I knew that it was going to take like X amount of weeks or months to heal, it's a lot easier versus a brain injury when you don't know, like this could take weeks or months or years, and or could never possibly get better. And yet I was able eventually to get to that point where I could accept that this is my reality now. And my reality is that I can't do a task without planning in how I'm going to have recovery time after for that task, even if that's putting away the dishes, or I'm not going to be able to play with my daughter or the same way that I would have before, or whatever. Like it impacted my life in so many ways, and I'm so grateful that I went through it now, and that I was able to accept that that was my reality, because it allowed me to start to make choices where I wasn't just in that victim mindset, um, and start to do things to really help myself and accept the situation as it was now, I guess. Yeah, so interesting.
Yeah, it's that paradox, because exactly, people are like, well, I can't accept this because I don't want it to stay this way. And that's the misunderstanding or distortion about acceptance. Just because you accept it for what it is doesn't mean you have to agree with it or keep it in your life. It's literally just the energy of acknowledging the current circumstances exactly as they are, and dropping the fight energy. It's that it is what it is. And from that space, there's oddly, ironically, paradoxically, all of the possibility that then opens up from it. And it's really inspiring. I always love hearing the stories from people who had these incredible medical experiences, or just like really traumatic, tragic things, who have then been able to come to that space of gratitude for it. It's just absolutely phenomenal. I've had many medical journeys like that, but truly, honestly, for me, it's always been about family and about wishing relationships were different than what they are. And I think there's probably people that can relate to this. So if you're watching live, let me know if you have maybe a relationship with parents or brothers and sisters that you wish was different somehow. Like if you could wave a magic wand and feel like you guys connected or clicked or were understood better, you would do it. Or perhaps you just wish that, for me, I'll just say that I have a very different relationship with my parents than I do with my child. I love my parents dearly, and they were the exact perfect people to raise me to be who I am right now, who I love and adore. So I don't know if I would change it. However, with my daughter, I notice that I am parenting her in a different way than they parented me. A lot of similarities, like I learned a lot of it, but there are some very key differences. And a lot of that to me is emotional availability. And I have a closeness with my daughter that I've never felt with my parents. As much as I love them and they love me, there are walls up, and I don't feel like we've ever had the same kind of connection that I have with my daughter. So as I was raising her, she's like 5.5, my inner child goes, well, why didn't I get that? And I spent time going, for the first time in my life, I almost never wish things were different, because I'm like, like things are perfect. There's a surrender, there's a divinity. But I was like, I wish I had had that nurturing. I wish I had had that. Why didn't I have that? I felt kind of hard done by. And it wasn't even for the past relationship, like me as a kid. It's like, man, I wish that I could receive what I would like to have in this now as an adult from my parents as well. And I spent a bit of time in suffering because of that, because I had this attachment to this idea, to this outcome that I wished that I could have, and it wasn't the reality. And it kept coming up, and I was like, I'm going to clear this. I'm going to clear the Akashic. I'm going to clear these soul contracts, stall that, and blah, blah, blah. And there was still this pain in my heart. And Nicole witnessed me and held me in that as I was moving through this, because it needed to be felt. I couldn't just be like, everything is divine and in divine order through this. That would have been bypassing it. But I came to this realization after I had felt all the things, and I decided I don't want to feel like this anymore. And I came to this space of, it is what it is. And then I just had this drop in of like, that's not what our soul contract was about. Oh my gosh. I was like, it wasn't even supposed to be that way. I had the contract that I required from my parents to become me. Me and my daughter wrote a different contract. She chose me because I could hold her and connect with her in this particular way. And I was like, oh, it wasn't even supposed to be like that with my parents. That wouldn't have given me what I needed to be who I am today. And I was able to then accept, wow, they're in fact doing for me exactly what I need in this moment. And yeah, I would change it, the part of me that would like more of that deep connection. And yet I can accept it now, because it is what it's supposed to be, right? It is what it is supposed to be for me. And my relationship with my daughter is what it is, probably because of that, because I don't take it for granted. So I was down visiting this weekend, and I noticed at the end that I actually had the best visit with my dad and with that family than I have ever had as an adult. But nothing had really changed on their end. It was really me that had shifted, because I was no longer expecting something to be different. I was totally able to be like, it is what it is, and then I could enjoy it. And so it's this ironic, I changed internally and I accepted it, and then it shifted the energy between us. It shifted all of my expectations were different, and then I had this different experience that was more pleasant than it has been in the past. There was no longing for something to be different because of that acceptance, and it was fun. There was more joy in it. There was more relaxation. There was more peace. And again, it was all just this internal shift, right? And I'm not saying that they haven't changed it all, because everybody's been doing their inner work. So I want to give credit where credit's due. And there's a lot of really cool things that my family has been doing, like hats off to them for their personal development. But the only thing that I could control about this was me. So, yeah.
I feel like that's such a good measurement of your doing your own work when nothing really changes in the situation yet, except for you, and you respond differently. So it's a really beautiful example, and like not having that longing for things to change or be different. And I feel like personally that's why I fared so well during the pandemic, because I had already been a year into the concussion at that point, and prior to the concussion, my family and I had a beautiful month where everyone was healthy. But prior to the concussion happening, my husband had gone through like an 18-month mental health crisis breakdown where I was stuck being the parent of a 2-year-old ish, and being responsible for her and for my husband because he was, yeah, not in a good place. We had a beautiful month, and then the concussion happened, and I'm like, wow, okay, so I get to drop even deeper into the accepting of life as it is and not trying to have it be different. I got to play with that, with it not being me, but needing to take care of somebody and then needing it to be me. And then the concussion happened. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I already understand what it's like to have things happen on the outside that are severely like not what you want them to be, and accept that this is what it is right now. And sometimes it sucks to have all those it sucks that we have to have those resilience muscles built up, and I'm also so grateful that I have them. uh, yeah, so that we don't have so that I didn't have to go into that longing of like, man, I really wish this was different. There's a few times, but really like on it only on a handful of times that I can imagine, or that I can count, that I can think back to, where I've really been upset about the pandemic happening. And of course, I'm speaking from this sort of place where I didn't lose a job or a loved one or anything like that. And I think those things might be a lot harder to accept. But from my experience of it, I was able to, really just go with the flow. I'm like, okay, this is what's happening now in the world, and from that zoomed out perspective, this is what humanity chose. And I also can look back on the last year and a half and see like so many people wouldn't have done the inner work had they not been forced to because of the pandemic. And we needed this as humanity to be able to evolve and continue on with this great ascension awakening process and all of that stuff. I just can't, it would have just been status quo, and that's not where we're headed. That's not what humanity wants to do right now on our soul levels. Maybe on our mind levels some of us are not so happy, but I think it's overall been positive to push us in the right trajectory of where we need to go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we needed the pandemic that we're in and all of that, but we need something, because we are beings who will just enjoy and ride out the status quo unless there is an external shift typically. So we do get external circumstances like poking us. Hey, this is my new lizard, by the way, that I found at the Mastermind Toys for like $4. So I'm like, I wonder why I like this. So I'm gonna hang out with this guy. And I'm distracted now. What was I saying? The pandemic, I mean, that's such a great example of it is what it is right now. And we don't have to agree with anything that the government's doing or that's happening in society, but we can be in a space of accepting that it is what it is currently, and then being in that spaciousness of, so how do I want to be right now? Right? Instead of just being in the fight against energy, which really keeps us from getting anywhere at this point. I feel like it used to be a survival tool. It has helped us in the past. It used to be how we stayed alive, right? And not just in this lifetime, but for many, many lifetimes on Earth, because the energy has shifted so much. The fight against, push against energy just doesn't work the same way anymore. So it's just this opportunity to maybe try something different, right? And coming into the like, okay, things are as they are. Oh, Jason Estes says it so beautifully. He says, acceptance doesn't mean you have to agree with it, right? It's just acknowledgement of things being in this space. He speaks on that a lot, and I've always come at it in a slightly different way, but it resonates so deeply for the ideas of introduction versus force, and being an example of what is possible as opposed to pushing against something, because right now pushing energy creates what he would call a counter force. So anytime that we're in the fight energy, something or someone is going to fight you back. Right?
Yeah, and I can just kind of, thinking back to my mom, I can kind of see that where she's like, oh, this is all costs so much money, and like all of these things, like I need to work because I can't afford to not work right now, but she can't also health wise afford for her health, she can't afford to work. And it is like all of this stuff is pushing back at her, whereas if we could just come into the place of surrender and acceptance, then you're getting to be able to choose to focus on what you want to create, which is something that we always talk about. What would you rather have instead? And it may not happen immediately. I didn't want the concussion for 2 years. I would have chosen to not have that. And it also, it gave me just so many new lessons to learn, and to learn how to live and still find peace and joy, even though the circumstances were challenging in my life. I was still, it happened in 2019, and I had taken I always say I took a little nap. I was awake before, and then with all that, heavy stuff that happened into my life, I took a little nap. I was very like, it's so interesting. It's almost as though I was like, I just didn't believe in stuff anymore. I am like, numbers, that's so stupid. That's not actually true. I used to believe in all like angel numbers, but now I see them and like, nope, that doesn't mean anything. But then the concussion happened in 2019, and that summer I woke from my nap, and that's when I really learned what was happening energetically. And I was like, oh my God, I am so grateful that I don't have to work right now and I can sleep all the time. Because I need this time for my body to adjust to this like change that's happening. And yeah, it's just so fascinating where I accepted where I was, and then I got to see all the gifts from it.
Yeah, I feel like that's really what the acceptance energy does. It is like it takes the blinders off, and then we can see reality for what it is, which is always presenting gifts, right? There's always opportunities, there's always lessons to be learned, and it really, they can be hidden from the push away if we're just like, no, 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 we can't see the situation. And like with what it's here to show us, what it's here to give us, even when it sucks, like a concussion like that. And the quote that's coming to me is that classic one, and I don't know who said it, but it's, life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass, it's about learning to dance in the rain. Right? And finding those moments of joy, like you were saying, and acceptance. It snowed today where we live in Edmonton for the first time this year. And it's nice because it's much later in the year than usual. And so I haven't heard quite as much of the snow, but usually every year, anywhere that I've ever lived that where it snows, which is everywhere in my life, because I've always lived in like the prairies of Western Canada, people get super into resistance about the snow, and their lives suck because of it. And I have been there. I've been in places where I'm like, snow, I'm cold, and it doesn't feel good. Does it change my ability? Like, does it change the reality if I'm annoyed at the snow? Of course not, right? It doesn't like suddenly become tropical. But when you're in the fight against the resistance energy, your experience of it is going to suck so much harder. So I actually started this tradition, which I just realized I'm going to have to find a way to live on today, even though I ordered groceries and didn't order any of this. But about 15 years ago, I started always having ice cream the first day it snowed, no matter if it was in September, November, October, is usually October. I would have ice cream because I was like, you know what? It is what it is, but I can still do the things that I want. It doesn't mean that life is over. And it just shifted it for me energetically because I was like, ooh, ice cream. So I started associating the first snows with something that I really liked. And that kind of sounds silly and it kind of sounds like a stupid example, but it's the little things that we wind up in resistance to that can also shift the energy of our experience. And how many people have had an entire bad day because it snowed 4 inches and you had to like scrape off your car, right? Or because it's cold outside and it's not summertime anymore. I think you can probably relate to that. It's not summer anymore, so therefore it sucks.
Yes. I am always working to love winter even more and find more joy in it. And I have a friend actually that loves the snow, and I couldn't understand why. And she said once to me, it's because it's so sparkly. Like after a fresh snowfall, it's so sparkly. There's glitter in the air. It's amazing. I'm like, you know what? You're actually right, and I totally appreciate it way more because of that. And I started to look for those little beautiful little sparkles everywhere. And of course, if you do live in somewhere like we do, you know that it doesn't always look like that all all winter long. It gets kind of brown and yucky and kind of not as beautiful, but there's still more beautiful things to search for. And she just showed me a different perspective and a different way to look through things. And as you were speaking into the experience today, it made me think of today. I actually woke up with a lot of anxiety in my body. I was being very irritable, um, and yeah, just not feeling very good. Sometimes I can manage like low levels of anxiety, but today felt like super intense. So I went into our playground library because I know that I'd previously recorded a resourcing meditation coming home into the body. And in the meditation, uh, we got to look at what was happening in our body. But it's so important to not just look at what's happening in the body as in your experience at that time, because you are probably going to look and notice the negative thing first, what feels uncomfortable first, because that is speaking louder. And so during the meditation, what we actually do is do a body scan, but then we also look for what feels good in the body and start to focus on that instead, which is awesome on so many levels, but it helps you be able to look for and look in that negative experience and be able to hold the what's actually good there also, but you might just not, your brain isn't primed to look for that if you're feeling pain or discomfort or anxiety or whatever. And then it teaches your brain to start to look for those good things in those moments, because it's activating your reticular activating system, and your brain will start to say, hey, this is important to look for the positive things. um, I just thought that was such a cool tool to have when I took a trauma course earlier this year, because like literally there's research done on this that we look for the bad things first, and when we're doing those body scans we will go for what doesn't feel good, and helping in those moments, helping ourselves be able to find and hold those simultaneous experiences at the same time of there's this discomfort, and you know what, this part of me feels, and it doesn't even have to be good, it could be just okay. There could just be a part of you that feels okay in the moment, and just noticing that that's both happening at the same time will prime you for those bigger experiences in life, to be able to do that on the macro level, the you know as above so below, as within so without. And that was just such a beautiful example of how, living this every day of of our lives can help us get through their and little minor annoyances, as well as the big things when life does get really real.
Yeah, I love that example, and it's true. It's unless you train your brain to be able to hold both at once, people will just focus on the bad stuff. But you can train your brain to see both at the time, and even to, this is fun, skew to see what is working, right? It takes practice. But you can definitely train your brain. Belief repatterning really supported me in amplifying that superpower that I had, because I've always been really good at seeing the challenge as an opportunity. I'm great at finding the silver linings. It's one of my superpowers. And it was very interesting because you started speaking about snow and how you didn't like it. And I've always been fine with snow, just like accepted it because there's fun. Skiing's fun. It's pretty. I love the sparkles. I also love not having to go outside all the time and feeling like I'm like wasting the day if I don't go outside because I don't want to, which I do sometimes in the beautiful summer months because we get so few of them sometimes. But I felt that way about Christmas and the holidays for a really long time. I had a lot of childhood trauma around it from having divorced parents, and then feeling like I had to choose who I was going to spend time with. And then someone was always going to be disappointed. And then there was also other stresses and working in the hospitality industry and icky commercialism. And I found all of the bad stuff. And I was honestly a Grinch and bah humbug about the whole thing for a few years. And I realized it felt really incongruent or incongruent, however you say that, with who I am and how I like to show up in the world. And I just felt icky. I was like, okay, maybe I could stop focusing on the stuff that sucks. It's going to be there. It's going to be commercial. There's going to be family stuff. But what if I could choose to find the beauty and just like cherry pick what I like and let the rest of it just be what it is? And I started to piece together the little bits that I did enjoy, and I started to shift the energy and even the focus to more of the solstice, which really filled my heart. Because I'm like, ooh, I can also trace back some of the traditions that were like lame Christmas stuff. And I'm like, ooh, actually, this is from this pagan tradition and Saturnalia and this and that and the Sami people. And I started to go, ooh, anthropology, and where is this coming from? And getting really excited about those things. And it didn't take long, maybe like 2 Christmases of going, what do I like about this? And focusing on that until I was like, oh man, I'm actually looking forward to the holiday because I chose consciously to create it in a way that served me. But I didn't have to reject what was. I just got to accept it, acknowledge it, be like, some parts of this suck. And also, what would I like instead? So there's this beautiful opportunity of choice that we get to come from when we stop trying to shove things away from us, right? And just be like, it's here. What can we do with it, right? I think it really does increase resilience, like you were saying, to be able to be, um, yeah, focused on the possibility that's within it and what gifts are there and available.
I also went through a similar Christmas journey as well. When I first like moved out on my own, I was so excited to like get decorations and decorate my own tree, and I would decorate my house so much and just loved it all. And then totally went through this like anti-capitalism, like anti-commercialism thing, totally bah humbug, where we didn't put any decorations up at all for a few years. And um, that's why I always loved Thanksgiving so much. I know we actually talked about Thanksgiving before, but before I really understood where the roots of Thanksgiving came from, I loved Thanksgiving because it felt like Christmas without all the stress of the commercialism part of it. Because I what I liked from it was the getting together with family, where it didn't feel. Have divorced parents also, and totally relate to the like I'm gonna disappoint someone and I want to be everywhere, and then that's stressful for me and all of that stuff. And but when I was able to not have those obligations and got to, choose who I wanted to spend time with and get that all that connection and all that kind of stuff, Christmas felt really fun and all the lights. And now really that time of year is also for me all about solstice and coming together in ceremony and all of that kind of stuff. So we really do get to choose what we want and what we want to take from things, and we don't have to prescribe to what society tells us we have to do. So I can still now also enjoy Christmas, and um, yeah, it's interesting. I'm like, do we actually get to like visit people this Christmas? I think we can. um, so we can connect with family again, and yeah, just have those, cozy, warm traditions. We get to make it what we want it to be. We don't have to. We don't have to take on all the parts that we don't like. So that's what I so love about being a conscious creator of my life, is being able to do what I want, take what I want, and forget the rest. And you're right. It was a lot worse when I didn't accept Christmas, because I would be watching TV before I had Netflix, before that was a thing, and would be super annoyed. I'm like, oh, Christmas commercials are out already. I don't like Christmas being shoved down my throat. And it would get like triggered every time I saw a commercial, which was all the freaking time. I was watching TV before we had um, all the streaming options that we do now. And then it just created more anger about it, because it was, yeah, being in that resistance. So it is a lot easier though, I guess, when you do get to choose what you're consuming from your media and you don't have to always be choosing to have commercials shoved down your throat. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like also we forget or don't even realize that we have a choice, right? Because you don't as a kid or even a teenager. And then you kind of like feel obligations to people and that it should be a certain way. And I think that was also a really powerful shift for me, was actually a beautiful repatterning I did at a belief repatterning event with the developer of belief repatterning, Suze Casey. We did it at the front of the room, and it was about me feeling like I should do something, and I felt like I had to, and there was obligations. And in this like 10-minute session, she destroyed and uncreated all of the programming that I had in my mind about doing things just because I thought I should, just because I thought I had to. And I was like, wow, I feel like this is going to ripple out into a few different things. And she's like, oh, it's going to ripple out into everything. It so has, and I'm still seeing these ripples, because I stopped going to do things just because I thought I had to, just because there was an obligation. And I felt this freedom in that, of going, wow, just because I have done something in the past or because other people do something doesn't mean that I have to do it. And I was like, I have a choice. I didn't realize I had a choice. I thought I had to do the things. I thought I had to do all of the traditions like we did as a kid, or like society tells you to. And that's just absolutely not the case. Even if you've got family who might try to guilt you into doing it and who might be disappointed, it doesn't mean you have to do it. It's like mind blowing. I absolutely have consciously created really chill days at Christmas time. And now I visit family before Christmas or after Christmas, like my extended family, and we spend time with just the kids. And actually, my husband has a daughter, so my bonus daughter from before we were together, and we, all of the co-parents, basically, the four of us, have all been from divorced families. And it's so nice because we've all consciously created this relationship that we have with each other that's not adversarial at all. In fact, we love each other dearly, and all of the kids are all of our kids, and we get to co-parent together, and we sometimes do Christmases together or Thanksgiving, and we can all hang out, and we don't have to make our kids choose. Do you want to hang out with mom or dad? It's like, how about, you go to dad's house on Christmas Eve, and then we'll drop you off, and maybe we'll come with you, and we'll see you on Christmas Day, or we just make it work. And there's no tension, because it doesn't have to be that way, right? And it's so lovely to have the old perspective of what I had when I was a kid, and literally create something that's almost the opposite, because because we had the power, right? And because we were like, that sucked. What would we like instead? Oh, I know. It's just something chill and fun, where we all get along, and it just gets to be what you want it to be.
Oh, I wish that I mean, it probably existed, but it was not in my realm. I wish that co-parenting was a thing when I was little. I'm sure that it existed, but yeah, that wouldn't even have been a possibility to entertain that my parents would have, you know, decided to spend Christmas together, because that would have been way more uncomfortable than just going to the different places. So it's such a beautiful example that you and your extended family all hold for people. And I'm just so grateful that children get that experience now. Because Christmas can just be so expensive. I want to say expensive. That's true. Stressful was what I was meaning to say. And yeah, just taking out that stress is so nice. It's so curious. I'm like, is there anybody that doesn't get stressed out about Christmas and the holidays? Like, why do we collectively agree to do this every year? And I think a lot of I've already been seeing TikToks about this, about people being like, I just realized I have to have Christmas this year. And like last year, everybody that maybe didn't love it so much got that excuse of not having to do all the things. And it was really nice. And now, so this is actually what's coming through is like, so before you just jump back into it because we can do things, what do you actually want to do? Can you allow yourself to choose what you actually want to do without that guilt and that obligation, and get to create your own traditions and have it set up so that it feels really good to you and your immediate family, and not just jump back into the way that we did things before, because that's how we always used to do them and now we could do them again that way. That let's choose something different if that's in front of you to do.
Yes, let's all make a pact to do this. And I'm getting better and better at it every year. And it was so easy when my dad said, like, what are you doing for the holidays? And 5 years ago, I might have been like, oh, I guess I should come down and see you and bring you the child and the thing. And now it's like, you know what? I'd really like to spend Christmas with Aurora and Charlie and, our immediate family, and have holiday time with you either before or after. And he's like, oh, cool. Well, I'd love to come up then. And I was like, amazing, right? Like, it's so fun to be a grown up. I love getting older and being able to like consciously create what it is we want, because we recognize that we have a choice. And I just need to acknowledge Shalon on the notes here. You're saying you can kind of relate because it's not that you dislike Christmas, but it takes over your birthday. So I'm guessing you have a birthday that's really close to Christmas. And yeah, that's one of the most perfect examples of being able to somehow find acceptance of it is what it is, but also then consciously going, what can I choose about this? My birthday's coming up in about 3 weeks, on December 5th. And I was always really grateful to my mom because she wouldn't let Christmas take over until after my birthday, like a couple days after. No Christmas trees, no like Christmas activities at our house. Like obviously she couldn't control the outside world, but she did that for me, and I loved that. It's probably a lot harder if your birthday is like right around the Christmas time, which so often happens. So yeah, there's a really amazing opportunity to be like, what can I accept about this? And then what can I consciously create from that place of acceptance? Because you can't change your birthday. Or could you change when you celebrate your birthday? I've heard of people doing that, right? Going like, my birthday is on the 25th of December, so I celebrate my unbirthday in July, if that's 6 months later, June or whatever it would be. And they just completely have their celebration then, and they're like, let's not make this about my birthday. Or maybe their close family would get them a gift. So I mean, you can do that as an adult. You can literally do that. You can change your name, you can change your birthday, you can change who you show up with, but we don't always give ourselves permission to do that. So I think that's one of the coolest parts about all of this acceptance is the from that place, then what are you going to do with it, right? It's the acceptance is not the end point. It's not like, okay, I accept it and then blah, it is what it is forever and I'm just going to let it go. No, that's accepting defeat. Accepting reality, and then going from this space, what next? What's possible? What can we create here?
just want to say, because my daughter Aurora has a birthday on January 7th, I always have celebrated her well, since she's been old enough to understand. So for the past couple of years, I've celebrated her half birthday in July because yeah, we couldn't, it's right after Christmas. That kind of does take away some of the excitement, and it's cold, and it's fun to like do something when it's, not the coldest part of the year on your birthday. So um, I'm glad to have created that tradition for her. Although now she thinks that everybody like celebrates their half birthday and that's like a normal thing, and I have to like tone it down and be like, well, it's not time for have a where we have a party with like everybody. It's we're just, going out to do something fun for you. But yeah, we can do those things. We can create, and we can change it up and not have to just go with with what's there. We get to choose.
Yeah, Shalon, your birthday's at the end of November? Good. You can totally make it be whatever you want it to be. Should you so choose. I love that tradition of the half birthday too. That's super fun for anybody that's lumped in there. My poor sister has a January 2nd birthday, which might be the worst of all time because everybody is partied out. Like people forget about it because like New Year's just happened. They're broke. They can't go out for dinner. They're like, well, just feel for her on that one because even her parents have forgotten her birthday before. Oh my God. Poor sweet soul. Yeah, don't do that as a parent. Yeah, petition for her to move her birthday to July so she can celebrate with people. But I love this conversation and where it went. What are we going to create, and how can we create it from the place of like, it is what it is, and also instead of leaving the conversation there, but really just wanting to invite people this week to feel into the energy of like, where are you putting up a fight to reality? Where are you really, really resisting it? And how is that impacting your ability to actually do something different, right? If you're in the fight, you can't actually choose something different. You're just pushing against it the whole time. Still playing with my lizard, pushing against it the whole time. So there's just a lot of opportunity. It was coming up with clients, it was coming up with friends. It feels like it's a beautiful opportunity for the whole collective right now.
Absolutely. And so, with that being said, we would love to invite you to our Aligned AF event next week. So, let's spend this week seeing where we have that resistance, and then next week we will get super aligned, shifting our state, and really being ready to come into that aligned state where we can create and choose even more. We're at such a powerful time in the wheel of the year right now, coming into that solstice period, and we're in eclipse season, or we're about to be there if we're not there already. So many different things energetically are going on, and it's such a beautiful time to align and start creating what we want for ourselves for right now and for 2022. So we have a free event happening next week in the Radiant Evolution Collective group on the 23rd. Did we say it's at noon Mountain Daylight Time, MDT?
MST now.
We're at MST now, right?
MST.
Thank you. 12 MST, and it's going to be a beautiful event with Aurora, Nina, and myself. And yeah, is there anything else you want to say about it?
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We're going to take you through some actual try it on practices to get aligned AF. If you're not sure what AF stands for, it rhymes with as duck. So get aligned as duck so that you can create from this beautiful space of alignment, body, mind, heart, and soul. We're going to do some transforming of the ick, of the density, so that we can connect with highest self, multidimensional self, and bring through that visionary energy and be that. We're going to talk about heart coherence. We're going to have some fun, and we're going to play with it. And feel free to invite your friends as well into this the group. The Joy Evolution group is the link that you can give people, and we can put that down if you want to invite them into the group or just come and play. There will be replays. we're going to do it live into the Facebook group. And that'll actually be our kickoff point for opening the doors to the playground again as well, because we're going to be really going deep into all of the alignment stuff for December. Get the most stacked Align and Design 21-day course in there for people to get like super clear coming up to the solstice, because that is such a powerful time to plant the seeds of intention for what we want to create, as you were saying. And I'm just really excited about all of this. And it makes me feel so happy to know that I have shifted December from being this like, really like all I had to do was work and it sucked and it was always stressful, into like, what is the potential here? It's like this beautiful womb of creation. And as a Sagittarius, I also love that energy that comes through. We're almost through Scorpio season, friends. You can do it. Stuff's going to come up over the next, little bit, so that it can be loved, it can be held, it can be transformed, it can be cleared. So can we accept it, love it, hug it, and go, what's the opportunity here?
It's gonna be so fun. Artist is asking when is that, and that is happening on November 23rd at 12 MST. And we'll post a Facebook event and get some information up about it in the group in like the next day, so you can get it on your calendar. Yeah, and also so excited about what's coming up in the playground in December. And also, as you talked about how you got to shift that just like dropped in for me. I used to work at a post-secondary institution. In December, everybody was fucking done. We were like just trying to get through the days so that we could have our couple weeks off over the Christmas holiday time, because it's just a sprint, a marathon from September to December, and we were also done, and I was always just exhausted by that time of the year. So I am extra grateful, because I'm just having this realization that that is not the reality that I've created for myself anymore. Woohoo! I'm living a much more sustainable pace of life now, and because I've done these practices of creating and setting intentions and really feeling what I want to feel in my life, embodying all those things, I've gotten the opportunity to come into December feeling good, not trying to be in that recovery space.
Oh my gosh. I think people who've worked in a lot of industries that get really busy at the holidays have a little bit of like PTSD from it. I worked in hospitality for many years as a manager. And then also when I decided to be a server instead of working in management, like it was 12 to 18-hour days, like minimum. And there were so many times when I'd be there till midnight and have to be there at 6 a.m. And it was, people had high expectations and there was a lot of tension, and there are times where there's just so much chaos. Oh my God. I used to manage a dinner theater and I was in charge of the kids shows. There was a time, I just have to tell you guys this, where we were so short staffed at a certain point in like the early 2010s that we would actually use kids soccer teams as bussers, because we couldn't find enough staff. So they would like make money towards their soccer tournaments. So it would be like, your staff is 14 and 15-year-olds who've never worked in a restaurant before. Now there's 450 customers and half of them are children and they're high on sugar and they're ready to see Santa. Go. Life is so different now.
Oh, that sounds awful.
I mean, it was also awesome though. It was just like, there was a lot of adrenaline and cortisol in my thing. And yes, I loved it. And also I'm so grateful for what I have consciously created now. And it's beautiful. And that's the thing. If something is not working for you, you have this opportunity to shift it and choose it. So yeah, I could tell stories. I could tell so many stories about working at the theater. But we'll leave that there. We will just send you so much love and just strength and support for what you're going through right now, holding space for you to be able to come into that space of accepting it as it is, so that you can be in the space of non-resistance and then have those opportunities for what you'd like to create drop in for you. That is possible. And yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes. Okay.
Watching, everybody. See you next week.
Talk to you soon. Lots of love.